How could this possibly compare to what is undoubtedly the greatest Western of all time?
Clint Eastwood.
Welcome everyone to Was It Good? My name is Bob, and last night I got the opportunity to check out Horizon, an American Saga Chapter 1. Now this is a film that was co-written, produced, directed, and starring the great Kevin Costner.
Costner, huh? Mm-hmm. Dances with wolves.
Now with Hollywood looking for the next great Western and Costner having a history with the genre, would he be able to deliver that epic film that people are looking for, or is he going to regret leaving Yellowstone to do this?
Do you know when John Dutton, when he'll be home?
Apparently never. So let's just go ahead and talk about this film. Now, as far as spoilers go, I want to let you know I am going to try to keep it spoiler free. However, there might be a couple of minor details that do pop out. So to let this be your spoiler warning that there could be some minor spoilers. Now, if you've seen the film, I'd like to know what you thought about it. Why don't you go ahead and share your comments in the comment section below? Let me know what you thought. Did you like it? Are you looking forward to the second chapter? What do you think of the overall concept? Do you think this is a good Western? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get to it. Horizon, an American Saga Chapter 1, is the first in a film series that consists of 4 planned American epic westerns that are directed, co-written, produced, and starring Kevin Costner. The plot centers on fictional characters and takes place in pre- and post-Civil War America and details the exploration of the American West. Now, as I researched the film and everything that went into making it, there's only one way I can describe this whole thing.
An ambitious project.
Now, that could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the film. Now, as far as the film itself, I found it to be a very mixed bag. And that's frustrating for me because I like this genre and I'm looking for the next great Western. But there were a lot of things I really liked that I thought worked really well and a lot of things that I didn't like about it. So, like I said, it was a very frustrating film for me because I found it to be a mixed bag. But let's start with the things that I did like. First off, I think the film looks great. This is clearly a labor of love for Costner as he's been trying to get this off the ground since the late 80s and he invested $38 million of his own money to make this happen. So the production quality is top notch as he and his team have spent time making sure that the details were done right. I think that the locations, the costumes, the set designs, the props, everything about the production of this, or production quality, looks and feels great. It feels authentic. It feels like you're in a Western, and I enjoyed that about this film. I think that that was really well done from start to finish. Next, I think there are some interesting themes and ideas that are introduced in this. For one, I like this idea that living in the Old West was hard. This is not anything that's easy. If you were to pick up and move to the West in search of a better life, you have to be prepared to work. You have to be prepared to defend yourself. And I enjoyed that the film touched on some of those things. It also showed the other side because you have several native populations in these areas where these settlers are moving into, and they're trying to defend their territory as well. And so you see animosity on both sides, you see the ugliness on both sides, and you see the brutalness that there actually is to live in the West during that time. And so I really like that the film touched on that. Now, when it comes to action, there wasn't really a whole lot in the movie, but I enjoyed what was there, especially during the first hour as there was this battle sequence that I really enjoyed. I found it to be very intense and it kept me on the edge of my seat. And that was actually my favorite part of the movie. As for the rest of the film, it is a slow burn and it very much depends on the performances of the actors in order to carry the film. And when it comes to performances, I think Kevin Costner is on top of his game. Now, he doesn't show up until much later in the film, but once he actually shows up, I gotta say, he feels like he belongs there.
He is a real cowboy. He sleeps with his eyes open so he can still watch the herd.
Jokes aside, he actually reminds me of one of those old school cowboys that you see in a classic Western film that you don't really know a whole lot about him. There's a lot of mystery surrounding him. In fact, in this one, you don't even find out his name until close to the end of the film. And I like the fact that he's a character that you don't mess with. If you push him, you're going to find out why you don't mess with him and you're going to regret it. So I very much enjoyed his character. I enjoyed the storyline with him and I liked what Costner brought to the role. Now, as far as the rest of the cast, it's very star-studded and I think that actually adds to the epicness of the film, or at least what they were trying to go for. So I appreciate that. Now, like I said, there's a lot of things that I liked about it and these were among those. And I thought all of these things were done very well. Now, despite the positives, this is a very flawed film. The first thing I'm going to start out with is it was very difficult to follow several of the storylines. There's actually multiple ones going on at once. And because of the way they jumped around in the stories, it actually made it difficult to get attached to certain characters. And you don't find yourself invested in them, or at least I didn't find myself invested in them. And it made it difficult for me to care when things were going on in that particular storyline. There were several parts where they would jump to one story and I would be like, no, 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 go back to Costner's story. That one actually interests me. Go back to that. And so I found that to be very frustrating the way that it jumped around. Now, in all fairness, this is only chapter 1. And so some of those stories may get fleshed out in chapter 2 and I may appreciate them a little bit more. But this is just how I felt with this particular film. Also, there were time jumps within the several of the storylines that it was actually kind of jarring because one scene you're seeing something and then the next scene you're seeing something else. For example, one character is just a little baby and then the next scene he's a toddler, and that throws you off because you don't know how much time has passed. They don't actually say. It's like literally from one scene to the next, and because there's no transition or it lets you know what the transition is, it's very jarring because you're trying to figure out what's going on. Now, when it comes to the writing, some of the dialogue was actually kind of cheesy, and that actually, to me, threw off the actor's performance in those scenes, and that actually took me out of the story. And in a movie that's very dependent on the actor's performance to carry it, I found that to be frustrating. The Like I said earlier, Kevin Costner did a really good job, but he's not in the movie enough to carry the whole thing. It's dependent on those other actors, and those moments that it got kind of cheesy that threw me out of the story, especially when you're looking at a story that's supposed to be this grand epic. Also, I found there to be way too many characters, and that actually affected the way that I watched the film because I was trying to follow several different storylines. And I think what they should have done is actually taken a couple of those storylines and let that be the focus of one movie, and then taken another couple and let that be the focus of chapter 2. And I think that the film would have benefited had they done that because we would have spent more time with those characters. Now, in all fairness, this is only chapter 1 of what's planned to be a 4-part series. And so, because of that, they're introducing all these different characters, so you're not going to get to spend all the time with them and learn everything about them in one chapter. So maybe I'll feel differently after I see chapter 2, but that's just the way I felt after seeing this film. Now, like I said, this is a flawed film. There are several positives, but there are several flaws. As far as my final thoughts go, was it good? Eh, to be honest, I found this to be an above average film. I've seen better Westerns, but I have seen worse ones. And the parts of this that I enjoyed, I really did enjoy. And I'm going to be honest, I think the pieces are there to make a really good Western. Everything that you would want in a Western is in this movie. So I got to give it props for that. It's just that the flaws were really hard for me to get over. And I found it to be an above average film. Now, I might feel differently after watching chapter 2 because I do think that that's where the meat of the story is going to be. And I was interested enough after seeing this to go on and watch chapter 2. Also, I do think that there's going to be a lot of people that are really going to like this film because it does have that grand epic feel to it. And I think people will gravitate towards that. So I'm interested to see what the final box office numbers will be. Now, if you're still watching this long, I'd like to thank you for joining me. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.